Hi, I'm Lindsay,
And I'm Connor.
and I promise this is interesting.
And I do hope it is interesting because it's my week this week
Da 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 da.
to
Connor
present
episode. Connor episode. Wee woo, wee
a
woo. It's
little
fun. Fun
subject.
o'clock.
And it takes me a little bit longer to make these episodes because of all the editing and whatever else. But I'm happy I get to present a little thing to you today, Lindsay.
Me too. Can you give me a hint as to where we will be going in the world today?
Actually, it is a little close to home. It's going to be my home state of South Carolina.
Oh boy.
Guess an era if you had to guess.
1706.
Close. Close.
Is it about the Revolutionary War?
No, it's about the other one. The Civil War.
Civil War?
Yeah.
Oh.
I know.
Why did I have a flashback like I was there?
I know. Well, I've noticed that a lot of my rabbit holes tend to revolve around like people. And today is no exception. It's about kind of like a Civil War hero who I think is pretty sick. And he comes from South Carolina, which South Carolina doesn't have a ton of heroes.
No, there's two Carolinas for a reason. And it's
Yes.
because South Carolina falls on the wrong side of that history, unfortunately.
Now, you've actually visited South Carolina now, right? Over the holidays.
Mhm.
So I'm curious, what comes to your mind when I say South Carolina?
An empty boulevard.
An empty boulevard.
I mean, to be frank, like South Carolina during the summer is at least certain parts of it can be pretty touristy. Like you have Myrtle Beach, which is like a common stop for cruise ships and things like that. Lots of retired people who want to just spend out their years like hanging out by a nice quiet beach with no one around to bother them,
Yeah.
which I totally respect. And I think that sounds lovely. And that's kind of what comes to mind. An empty beach with like an 80-year-old couple
Yeah.
sitting and watching the waves.
Yeah, that's about right. I mean, at this point, South Carolina is really mostly known for like golf courses, shrimp and grits, and arguing about whether or not it's okay to fly the Confederate flag.
Oh, that's interesting. That's
Yeah.
good. That makes me feel good. Also, lots of pancake restaurants.
There's a lot of pancake and breakfast spots. Yeah. Now, when conversations of South Carolina come up, the topic usually moves towards the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
And that's mostly because the history of the war is still very present throughout the entire state.
Very
Like,
much.
you know, it was the kind of the center point for a lot of important battles for the Union during the Civil War. And it's hard to get away from that history, especially when you live within it every single day. As a personal example, the deed to the first house that my parents owned in South Carolina said that it had a clause in it that said it could not be sold to, quote, any person of the African race or anyone from north of the Mason-Dixon line. I called my dad to confirm that. It was on the original piece of paper that dated back to like the 1800s.
Is that legally enforceable?
No, it is not. I don't know who they sold that house to, but you just go to a judge and they go, "Oh, okay, cool," and then they put a stamp on it. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay. Yeah.
a deed is like you have to keep a record of the deed.
Sure.
So I mean, there's records of deeds dating back to like the King of England in America. You know?
Not a homeowner, not even an apartment owner could not tell you a damn thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. What is a deed? To me, that's like an ancient scroll. Like you
Mhm.
may as well be talking about like a book of alchemy. That's so foreign to me.
I know. The Civil War obviously had a very lasting impact on the entire country that we're still kind of dealing with today. But from that incredibly dark era of history in our country, there were some incredible people who accomplished some amazing things. And my rabbit hole is about one of these people, a man who escaped slavery, stole a Confederate warship, became a war hero, and then served multiple terms in Congress, all within the span of about 40 years. His name was Robert Smalls.
I've never heard of this man.
I think a lot of people haven't. And we're going to get into why that might be later on. But let's start at the beginning. I won't even say take me back. Our story starts in a place that I know pretty well, which is Beaufort, South Carolina.
Beaufort.
Beaufort,
Okay.
which is different from Beaufort, North Carolina, even though they are spelled the exact same way. The Carolinas have a lot of colloquialisms and pronunciations that are very specific to themselves. So Robert Smalls was born April 5th, 1839, to a woman named Lydia Polite. I know.
That's like being called like Christine Talent. Great.
They are both enslaved to a man named Henry McKee. The identity of Small's father is unknown, but it is believed to have possibly been McKee himself, which unfortunately was not a very uncommon thing back then. Robert's mother grew up working in the fields, but was eventually made a house servant where she served the McKee family. And for whatever reason, the McKee family had a soft spot for her son, Robert, and showed him a lot of favor over other enslaved children. He was running around the house and was mostly made to do chores there. Because of all the preferential treatment Robert was getting, His mother was worried that he would grow up to not fully grasp how terrible slavery was.
Mm.
So she personally requested to the McKee family that he be put into the fields and to watch whippings that occurred on the property, which is kind of brutal, but at the same
Whoa.
time, like, I get it if you're his mom, right? Like, this terrible thing is happening, and it's not all rainbows and sunshine.
This
Like,
is an impossible situation.
when he reached the age of 12, his mother again asked McKee to send Robert out to Charleston to be rented out with the hope that he would learn some kind of like valuable trade. So he wouldn't just be left picking cotton in the fields or working on a farm, that kind of thing, which I didn't realize was kind of a common thing that happened in this era, where they would send enslaved people to the cities to work as like carpenters or shipwrights or that kind of thing. And the owner of the person would make money from the enslaved person working those jobs.
Okay, so they still didn't get paid for the labor, but
No.
the owner did.
It was very uncommon. McKee agreed, and Robert left Beaufort and was sent to Charleston as a laborer, where he earned $16 a week. And of that $16, he was given exactly $1, with the rest going to McKee. So he got paid $1 a week, which again is incredibly uncommon. So most people just had all their wages taken. And
what does that translate to in today's money?
I want to say it's about $30 or $40 a week. So not much. Not much. I'd never heard of this kind of thing, but it was pretty common in America. So they had like a lease that they negotiated terms with, and they would usually go live with another family or live with a business while they worked there. And these leases usually lasted for like a year or 2 years or whatever. And he spent all of his time in Charleston from that point on, which Charleston was a bustling place. Like, that was a massive port of entry for the Americas, and specifically the South. It was probably the most, economically important piece that the South had to its economic success. So Robert was working at a hotel, earning $1 a week and saving every single penny he earned. He eventually became a lamplighter for the city, which is a very cool job, I thought.
This is one of those old-fashioned jobs from the old world that I love. It's like lighthouse keeper,
a little bit,
or like a knocker-upper, where like your job is to get up super early and knock on windows with a long cane to wake people up because alarm clocks didn't exist.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that thing before.
Yeah, a knocker-upper.
When my granddad worked on the railroads in West Virginia when he was a kid, and one of his early jobs was going to wake up rail line workers in the morning.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that was another job that people had in history, of just like the knocker upper. I've never heard that before.
Makes sense to send a shrill kid
out.
Just go wake him up.
So he worked as a lamplighter for the city, and part of that work required him to frequently go down to the docks of Charleston. Again, a bustling port city.
Yes.
Tons of lamps everywhere. It was busy. He learned the docks inside and out, and this was kind of his first taste of what would eventually become his love for ships and the sea. Eventually, he left the lamplighting world and started working on the docks and the wharves of Charleston. At this time in history, Charleston was one of the largest and wealthiest ports in America. So this was a major bustling hub to be working in, and few people knew the ins and outs better than Robert.
Mm-hmm.
He started off as a longshoreman, which is someone who just helps load and unload ships.
Yeah.
And then worked as a rigger and a sailmaker, which, could you imagine sailmaking back then? That'd be a very intense job, like working with the very thick pieces of vellum or whatever they're working with. Yeah, pretty cool.
Making sails.
I know.
If I made sails for sailboats, I'd wear a t-shirt that said, "Ask me about my job."
Yeah.
Ask me what I can do. I can make sails. I make sails.
And this is kind of around the time of the steam engine as well. So
okay.
Sailboats were still the most commonplace thing, but steam engines were also a thing that were starting to become more commonplace.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually he worked his way up to being a wheelman for a steamship called the CSS Planter.
Wow, okay. So wait, at this point, is he a freedman, or is he's still owned by the McKee family? He is still owned by the
McKee family, yes.
Okay.
And he is being rented out. So no matter what he's doing, I know. Believe me.
What the fuck are we talking about? Okay.
So no matter what he does, all of his money, basically all of his money, goes back to the family that owns him, which... This is like not,
awesome.
This is not like just general labor. You know what I mean? Like working as a sailmaker, that's very intense, very specified labor.
All of it, like longshoremen, all of this is super labor intensive.
Absolutely.
And also, we're not exactly in the period of unions.
No,
so
definitely not.
There's no like workers' compensation. You get injured on the job. It's just you don't work that job anymore if you get injured.
And even the regular, like the white freed longshoremen weren't doing great. You know what I mean?
No, nobody had teeth. Like we didn't have dentists yet. We were eating ketchup for infections. Right. It was a nightmare. Life was a nightmare until about 2 years ago, and now it's a nightmare again.
And it's important to note that they called him a wheelman, where other people who were white would have been called pilot, but they didn't give that rank or title to black people at this time.
What'd they call him?
Wheelman.
He's just a wheelman.
Yeah.
But it was the same job.
It was the same exact job.
Okay.
So his whole thing was steering and piloting the ship through the docks, which at that point, incredibly tough because so many ships are coming in and out. The docks are very close. It's specialized labor. While he was working and saving, he met and fell in love with a woman named Hannah Jones, who was an enslaved woman working as a hotel maid at the hotel that he'd actually started at.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Smalls got permission from his and Hannah's owners to get married and to even move into an apartment together, which, to my knowledge, was fairly uncommon. That was like not a thing that they did.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So they're both still owned by other people, but they're living by themselves in an apartment with their children. So Hannah had some children before they got married, but they're going to have children as well. Robert knew that even though he and his wife were married, that could be taken away at any second.
Right.
Like regardless of whatever they had, being enslaved to somebody means that they control your entire life.
Yeah.
You know, and their children as well. That was part of the deal.
Is that they own the kids too?
Yeah.
They're just born into slavery.
Mm-hmm. That was how it always worked, you know? So this was something that haunted him. Once he had kids, he realized like, we can't keep doing this. You know what I mean? He approached Hannah's owners and asked if he could actually buy his wife's freedom, which again was not very common, but wasn't totally unheard of. Certain people, like guys in Robert's position, would work to save money to buy their wife's freedom. The problem is when they get someone who's like a dishonest owner, they go, yes, of course, you can buy your wife for this much money. And then as soon as they reach that, they just raise the price. Or the person who owns that person takes away all of their money, right? It was terrible.
Or like you pay, let's say $13. Okay, then you pay them $13. Who's going to enforce that they actually relinquish her freedom to you?
Exactly.
There's that paper can just be, whoops, we ripped it. Sorry, we're starting at square zero.
More or less. That happened so often. I mean, that movie 12 Years a Slave deals with something that's kind of similar, where the main character of that movie was never even enslaved, but he was kidnapped and then forced into enslavement.
Right.
You know, just because they could. Like, so Hannah's owners told him that he could buy her freedom for $800, which was a lot of money back then. I mean, you got to think, he's making $1 a week. Like, that would be years of saving. Years of saving. Robert, after all these years of saving, had only $100 to his name. So it would take a lifetime to save up enough money. And things became even more complicated with the outbreak of the Civil War. So you got to think the Civil War wasn't even happening at this point.
Right.
He was just living and working.
But the idea, so when he was born in 1839, you said?
Yes, 1839. Good memory.
Okay, so he was born in 1839. I'm assuming he's about 20 now?
Yeah, just about.
Yeah, so at that time, the idea of abolition was actually very common amongst the elite. We've talked about this a little bit before, but like Robert E. Lee was technically an abolitionist.
He was,
because he was from a higher class, and it was very popular amongst the elite at the time to say, well, I just don't think it's right. I mean, I don't think it's the Christian thing to do. Now, were they granting their slaves freedom? No. Were they building the underground tunnel? No. But they would say it at dinner parties to seem civilized and Christian and polite.
Exactly. The French were talking about it at the time.
Exactly.
Like,
it was this new wild idea that maybe we don't own people.
Exactly. And I think Charleston is in South Carolina, which is like the heart of the state. So it wasn't exactly filled with liberal ideas of freedom. No. So the war broke out in 1861. So that would put Robert at, about 20 years old when this is all happening. Charleston was one of the first places to fall into Confederate hands.
Yes.
It's a very important port city.
Yes.
And the Planter, the ship that Robert piloted, was being rented out to the Confederate Army as a transport vessel and a vessel that would lay mines in the harbor. So a big thing around this time in the Navy was that they didn't want Union ships to be able to get into the harbor.
Right.
And so what they would do is they would lay mines in the middle of the harbor, and every Confederate ship had a map of where the mines would be,
Oh, okay.
which made it safe for everybody else. And people like Robert, who was the pilot of the ship, knew by memory where everything was, but the Union didn't.
Interesting.
Right? That's what kind of protected the harbors. So Smalls was watching what was happening and hearing all the news of Confederate victories coming back to town. So he decided he didn't want to wait around anymore and see how this whole Civil War thing was going to shake out, because the Confederates won a couple of early victories in that first year and a half.
Yes, for a while it was looking like the Confederacy was going to win.
Exactly. The Union always had the numbers advantage, but they didn't have the actual military advantage.
Something I always go back to is that the Union had more resources in the state of New York than the Confederacy had in its entirety, and the
Yes.
Confederacy was still winning in those early years. And a lot of that is poor Union leadership. They were
Absolutely.
cycling through generals like crazy looking for somebody because Abraham Lincoln wanted Robert E. Lee to be the general of the Union Army, and he said no because he was from the South. He was from Virginia.
Yes.
And he didn't want to fight against his Virginians. So again, like technically believes in this idea of abolition, but not enough to fight for it.
Right. It became a very complicated thing. And I mean, Abraham Lincoln, I believe, said that the war itself was, he would start winning the war once he found a general who understood the arithmetic, which is
Yes.
that we just need to send more bodies at them than they can replenish, which is a terrible place to be, right? I mean, I was telling you this the other night, like the Civil War, the American casualties during the Civil War only just got caught up to with all the wars that have recently passed. So since the Civil War, we didn't catch up to those casualties in every single war that America has been involved in until just now with like Afghanistan. That's how many lives were lost. You know, it was not a clean thing.
No, I mean, it's neighbors turning on neighbors. It's
Yeah.
like if you have friends in North Carolina, but you live in South Carolina, now they're enemy numero uno.
Exactly.
I mean, it was a nightmare. It's a civil war. Like it's like, I don't know a single civil war that wasn't bloody and awful and took centuries to heal from.
Exactly.
So this was no exception.
So on the night of May 12th, my birthday, 1862.
Hey, happy birthday, Connor.
Thank you. The white officers who were in charge of the planter went to shore for a night out on the town, which was not an uncommon thing for them to do. And they would leave Robert and the rest of the crew on the ship. That's where they kind of slept and worked.
Okay. Wait a minute. Okay. So you have a bunch of white officers who are going to shore to presumably partake in sex and drugs.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And drinking.
Right. And they leave the black wheelman in
Yes.
charge of the ship. The black wheelman who is owned currently.
Yes.
And whose beloved wife is owned currently.
Correct.
Brilliant.
I
It
know.
is shocking that the Confederacy fell. I mean,
and the thing is, they really believed that nothing was going to happen. Like that's how far the delusion of ownership went. You know what I mean?
I guess that makes sense. If you grow up in a world that has always used slave labor, then I guess.
Well, it speaks to like the dehumanization that they actually had against black people at the time.
Yeah.
Right. Like they actually thought that they were lesser beings. So much so that they didn't think that they would have some kind of ability to understand where they were. I am in charge of the ship.
Right.
Oh, I'm all alone. What am I going to do?
Yeah, did they think the wheelman like didn't know that there was a war going on?
Exactly.
He's just driving the ship for no reason. Like,
Yeah.
what do they think is going on?
So those characters will come back to bite us for a second. But it's important to note that where they are in Charleston, it's heavily guarded. There's forts on all sides. Charleston is basically a gigantic battery of forts and cannons and guns.
Again, huge port city.
Absolutely.
So makes sense.
So they also probably thought like, there's no way if he wants to take the boat, he'll get sunk. Nothing's going to happen.
But
right?
he knows where the mines are.
I know. Well, Robert told everyone else on the ship what the plan was as soon as they left.
Is this about a pirate?
It
Is
was-
this a story about a pirate?
Kind of.
I love pirates.
It was risky. A naval committee report on the incident described it as, quote, hazardous in the extreme. Smalls and his men had no intention of being taken alive. Either they will escape or use whatever guns and ammunition they have to fight and, if necessary, sink their own ship. Failure in detection would have been certain death. Fearful was the venture, yet it was made. End quote. I'm telling you.
I miss the way we used to write up reports. That's poetry.
That's what what's really, I think I was telling you this earlier. What's really nice about this subject is that when you talk about military subjects, they're so well documented that you have a lot of things to pull from. You know, I was really lucky to be able to find some good stuff on this all of Robert Smalls' life. It was great. So The whole thing seemed risky, that apparently 2 individuals actually decided to stay behind. They didn't want to die, which I think they would soon learn to regret. When Robert told his wife about the plan days before, she apparently said, quote, "It is a risk, dear, but you and I and our little ones must be free. I will go, for where you die, I will die," end quote. I know. You got to love it. Because of the naval records, we have a pretty detailed timetable of actually like what happened to the ship. 2 a.m. Robert and the planter's crew fire up the ship. They hoist the South Carolina flag and the Confederate flag as decoys, and they set sail.
So hang on, who else is on this ship? Are these also like slaves?
Yes.
Or are okay, they're all slaves.
It is all black slaves who are owned by other families.
Okay, and who are the 2 that decided to stay behind? Are
I
they
believe also slaves.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So in total, there's going to be 16 people aboard this ship because they exited the dock and they stop off at the West Atlantic Wharf to pick up Smalls's wife and children, along with 4 other women, 3 men, and another child. So there's no turning back now. They've got civilians on board that should not be there.
I'm obsessed that somebody was like, "Can we take my uncle?"
Yeah, exactly.
Like, can we? I know this is like a super dangerous mission, but do you mind if we just real quick grab my grandpa?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Well, that's
quick pit stop.
I imagine he told his wife that day, is like, get them all, like, because he didn't tell the crew until they were about to set sail. So he probably told his wife, like, go get these other people, get their whole families and bring them to the boat.
We'll pick them up.
Now, here's their biggest problem. It was wartime, and the port of Charleston is incredibly well defended. Because of that, all ships have to pass multiple checkpoints in order to get out of Charleston, right? So how are they going to get past all of these checkpoints, right? They didn't have like ID or anything. And part of it was like a visual thing. They had to see the captain and be like, "You're good to go."
Oh, okay.
Right? This is where Robert's secret weapon comes into play. He's been the pilot of the ship for years now, so he knows all the codes and all the signals that Confederate ships use to get past every fort. Not only that, he's also have said to have a striking resemblance to the Confederate captain in charge of the ship.
Really?
Yes. He was also a little bit light-skinned, more light-skinned than other people. So
could pass for a captain of a ship.
Yeah.
Interesting.
In the dark, he could pass for...
That's right. It's 2 a.m.
Exactly.
Very interesting. Okay.
So, and that captain just so happened to have left his coat and his hat behind, which Robert put on as they were leaving.
Oh, this is beautiful.
Yes. The plan is set. 3:25 a.m. The planter accelerates into the naval yard. Robert is manning the wheel and blows the ship's whistle while passing Confederate Fort Johnson. So that was the code they used. It was a certain number of pips you had to give on your whistle.
Okay.
And if you gave the wrong number of pips, they sank you.
Okay, great, good.
4:15 a.m., the final fort, Fort Sumter. He's passed a ton of forts at this point, but Fort Sumter is the biggest one. That was like the pride and joy of the Confederate Army. And it was the final roadblock between the ship and its freedom.
Okay. Wait, where is it going?
It's just trying to leave the port.
Okay.
So at this point, because of the war, Charleston is blockaded by the Union Navy.
I see. Okay.
So there's ships surrounding Charleston.
Got it.
So their plan is to break for the blockade.
Yeah.
But how are they going to do that?
How are they? Okay.
You know?
Oh, Jesus. And they have a Confederate flag flying, so they're going to approach the blockade and...
A lot of problems. A lot of logistical problems with this plan.
Guys, I don't know about this plan.
Here's a quote from Kate Lineberry's book about Robert Smalls. Quote, "As the planter approached the fort, several men urged Smalls to give it a wide berth. Smalls refused, saying that such behavior would almost certainly arouse suspicion. He steered the ship along its normal path, slowly, as though he were merely enjoying the early morning air and in no particular hurry. Very casual with the whole thing. When Fort Sumter flashed the challenge signal, Smalls again gave the correct hand signs and the whistles. There was a long pause. The fort didn't immediately respond, and Smalls apparently expected cannon fire to shred the planter to shreds at any moment. Finally, the fort signaled that all was well, and Smalls sailed his ship out of the harbor." End quote. Smalls not only knows all the right Navy signals to flash, he even folds his arm like the captain, and in the low light hours of the dawn, the soldiers in the forts didn't know anything was amiss. They saw the captain. They thought that's who was manning the ship. We have a rather defensive letter from a Confederate aide-de-camp who was on duty that night, saying, quote, "She was supposed to be the guard boat that was allowed to pass without interruption," end quote. Someone was getting grilled. In all, Smalls guided the ship past 5 Confederate harbor forts without incident. And I imagine a lot of people got demoted from this little fiasco happening on their watch. And in fact, I believe the 3 officers that were on board that went to shore and left the boat unmanned were brought up on charges and demoted. So there you go. Nobody on the Confederate side thought anything was amiss until after the ship was well out of range. And they noticed that the planter was heading directly towards the Union blockade. As they approached, Robert had the crew replace the flags they were flying with a white bed sheet that he had told his wife to bring on board. They wanted to signal surrender.
Yeah.
But the morning was still fresh, and the Union couldn't tell what the ship was doing.
Oh, come on.
So they prepared to fire on what they thought was an enemy vessel trying to run the blockade.
Okay, but luckily those cannons took a long time to load.
Exactly.
That's not a quick process.
Just as the Union boats were getting ready to fire, like literally the report says we were aiming and we had the trajectory to fire upon this vessel.
I would not be handling this well.
Someone finally noticed the white flag calling for a ceasefire. Civil War historian James McPherson, who is an awesome dude. You should look him up at some point. He was, I believe, the dean of Civil War histories at Princeton.
Oh, dude.
Sick guy.
Awesome.
He's done a ton of like really good historian stuff. Quotes the following eyewitness account. Quote, just as the number 3 port gun was being elevated, someone cried out, I see something that looks like a white flag. And true enough, there was something flying on the streamer that would have been white. As she neared us, we looked in vain for the face of a white man. When they discovered that we would not fire on them, there was a rush of contrabands out on deck. That means slaves. Some dancing, some singing, whistling, jumping, and others stood looking towards Fort Sumter and muttering all sorts of maledictions against it and the heart of the South generally. As the steamer came near and under the stern of the Onward, which was the Union ship, one of the colored men stepped forward and taking off his hat shouted, Good morning, sir. I've brought you some of the old United States guns. That was Robert Smalls.
So wait, the people on the Union ships could tell that there were no white men aboard.
Yes. But they were expecting a white man to step off the ship. Yeah. And you got to think now it's probably like close to 5 a.m, right? The sun is
so now
coming
there's
up.
more sun. Okay.
Exactly.
I guess. But I also like to think that all the Confederate captains who were looking at the other ship were just like blasted, just on moonshine, just like, yeah, looks good to me. Everything looks normal.
Honestly.
Oh, he's headed for the blockade? Whatever.
Honestly, probably.
Like,
yeah.
How close of attention were they paying? They're just like, oh yeah, that's the ship we see every second of every day. Who cares?
With that, Robert Smalls, his family, and his crew were now free men. 16 people total. Incredible.
Dude, imagine being one of those people who just got picked up.
Yeah.
Like just one of the pedestrians who's just waiting on the dock and is like, I guess we're going to try to escape today. And then it works.
Right.
Can you imagine?
It'd be unbelievable. Also, crazy to me that they call these now free men contraband. Like that's...
Also, like, you're the Union.
Right.
That's the Union.
It's not a great look, guys.
Well, I mean, you read any speech that Abraham Lincoln gave, it's clear that he still believes that black people are below white people, that there is such thing as a superior race and an inferior race. Oh, they all talked about it that way. Yeah. It's not like the Union was like, no, all men are actually created equal. That was like a nice talking point. It was not really put into practice. It was not. It's like, well, men are created equal, but some are better than others.
Exactly.
It's like
exactly.
Very, very hypocritical. It's less inspiring when you read those documents.
The Union soldiers were apparently pretty impressed with Robert's whole operation. We know that one officer wrote a letter to the Navy Secretary in Washington stating, quote, Robert, the intelligent slave and pilot of the boat who performed this bold feat so skillfully, informed me of the capture of the Sumter gun, presuming it would be a matter of interest. He is superior to any who have come into our lines, end quote. So getting kind of heavy props from this guy. The ship wasn't the only thing that they brought with them. It turns out that earlier that day, before the escape, the ship picked up 4 large cannons to transport to a fort in Charleston Harbor. The crew had also loaded 200 pounds of ammunition and 20 cords of firewood onto the ship.
Gorgeous.
That's a lot of stuff.
Gorgeous.
That's a lot of stuff. But the thing that the Union found most valuable was the captain's code book, containing the Confederate signals and a map of the minefield that had been laid in Charleston's harbor.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. And also, like, Robert would know.
Well, beyond that, Robert and his extensive knowledge of the Charleston waterways and military configurations would be invaluable for the Union Navy. And actually, based on the information that he had, the Union Navy was able to capture a largely unmanned Confederate fort that they believed to be heavily manned. The commander of the blockade credited Robert with the information that made that possible. So imagine that you're holding this blockade and then suddenly you're taking a fort that you thought had 1,000 guys in it. It has 4 dudes and you just take it over.
Awesome.
Like amazing.
Did we name a park after this guy or anything? Did he get a boulevard?
He got some stuff. Don't worry.
All right.
The Union leadership was so impressed with Robert that they petitioned the U.S. Congress to pass a private bill authorizing the Navy to appraise the planter and award Robert and his crew half of the proceeds for, quote, rescuing her from the enemies of the government, end quote. Robert received $1,500 cash, which is about $45,000 to $50,000 personally.
I would have liked to see that number up personally, but
that's absolutely a lot of money at that time. But later in his life, people would argue that he deserved to be paid much more, closer to the range of like $5,000 to $6,000, which would be about $100,000 now, right? As a point of example, the Confederate Army put a bounty of $4,000 on Robert's head. So if that's how much the ship was worth to the Confederate Army, like, you know what I mean?
You find yourself asking these questions, like as a military leader, like what is it worth to you to win this war? This guy helped you do that.
Exactly.
So whatever that number is, not to turn into Aaron Brockovich, like I want you to think real hard about what your spine is worth to you.
Exactly.
Bona fide or whatever. I don't remember. And she's not Southern, but in my mind, Julia Roberts is perpetually from Louisiana.
Correct. Yes. So Robert was quickly recognized as something of a local hero. Capturing a ship for the Union was no small feat. The New York Times declared Small's theft of the planter, quote, one of the most heroic acts of the war. Politicians even used his acts of heroism as a means to pressure Abraham Lincoln to free all the slaves and allow black soldiers to fight for the Union Army. Because remember, the slaves were not free under the Union at this point.
Wait, and like black men couldn't even fight in the Union Army?
Not yet, no.
Literally, who's more impassioned? Who would be more impassioned to fight for the Union than a black man at this time?
Exactly.
Okay, fine, whatever.
So,
what do I know? What do I know? I'm just a person who lives in the future.
Quote, is he not a man, and is he not fit for freedom, since he made such a hazardous dash to gain it? Posed the New York Daily Tribune. Is he not a man and a hero, whose pluck has not been questioned by even the Charleston Courier or the New York Herald? What white man has made a bolder dash or won a richer prize in the teeth of such perils during the war? End quote. God, old-timey reporters used to really have the gift.
They did. I like that. I like the gab that this gabber is gabbing.
Which, like, you gotta think, this is around an era where in major cities, they were publishing newspapers multiple times a day. They would have the morning edition, the afternoon edition, and the evening edition.
Yeah. And everyone read every single one.
They did. It was kind of crazy. Robert was sent along with some other military personnel to help persuade Abraham Lincoln into allowing black soldiers to fight for the Union. And after multiple meetings, the Secretary of War signed an order that authorized Robert to muster 5,000 African Americans at Port Royal into the service of the Union Army.
Really?
That's a lot of bodies.
Oh, wait, so at some point the Union Army did put out a bulletin that said, if you are an enslaved person and you fight for the Union, you will be granted your freedom.
Correct.
In the event that we win the war and that the war ends.
Correct. Yes, that's right.
Is that right around the time that this happened? Is it directly due to Robert Smalls?
I don't think it's directly due to Robert Smalls, but it was all happening around the same time, right? The Gettysburg Address and allowing black soldiers to fight. This is when they started commissioning actual battalions of black soldiers.
Okay.
And I mean, it goes back to like, we were on the right side of history, but things still weren't great. Like the black soldiers had their own barracks, their own lines, their own stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, we would still have Jim Crow like 100 years later. So
Correct.
I'm under no assumption that like they were all eating macaroni and cheese together. It was just
Exactly.
all like, hanging out by the fire and telling stories. But
Robert tried to enlist himself, but was denied because the Union leadership found that he had a greater value to the U.S. government.
Oh, interesting.
As a civilian pilot for Union warships. Smalls accepted the advice and returned as the pilot of the Planter. Over the next 2 years, he played a critical role in no fewer than 17 naval battles.
Holy mackerel, dude.
And these are like old school naval battles. This is
Oh,
basically
man.
pirate warfare.
Yeah,
right?
it's cannon fire. It's brutal.
Yeah. The Planter had been converted to an Army supply and transport ship under the command of Captain Nickerson. Robert resumed his pilot duties and took on more ordinary missions. But December 1st, 1863, the Planter came under fire from Confederate artillery. Captain Nickerson, the captain of the ship, was convinced that there was no way out. He ordered Robert to surrender the ship, but Robert refused. He knew that while the rebel army would treat the captain, a white man, with respect, The rest of the crew, which was mostly comprised of runaway slaves, would likely be killed or taken back into slavery. The captain panicked and rushed below deck and hid inside of the coal room. Robert took command of the ship and, despite being continuously shelled, steered the Planter, the very ship that he took to freedom, out of the range of the Confederate guns and back to safety. For his act of heroism, Robert was promoted to the rank of captain and given command of the Planter.
That's amazing. Probably should have happened after he stole the ship.
That's right.
Why did that not happen 2 years ago?
So here's the thing. At this point, the army is still very like white wigs and very like where you went to school. You know what I mean? At this stage in history, you could not be a naval officer unless you had gone to a certain naval academy or certain naval academies around the country. So they could not even give him an officership because he had not graduated from one of these naval academies.
He was a slave.
I know. That's the thing, though. It's like, and it's going to come up later, and it's going to make you upset, as it should.
I'm already upset. Why wasn't he captain? You made this other guy. What? Okay, who was this? Whose son was this white captain?
Exactly.
I know he's related to. That's a senator's son, right
Probably.
there, running underneath the deck. Like, no, we need to surrender.
You know what's interesting is that the officer who met Robert after he escaped was Captain DuPont of the DuPont family, the massive DuPont family.
Still a big family now, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So it's like that's who was running the Navy at the time.
But he's running circles around you.
Exactly.
So I think you probably want to bring him into your club, right? He's
Right.
he's gonna make your club better.
You would hope.
I don't understand.
He was the first black man to command a ship in the service of the United States. From December 1863 on, he earned $150 a month, making him one of the highest paid black soldiers of the war. Again, there are some disputes about this. We know he was paid by the Navy, but he technically was never officially made a naval officer. He was never even commissioned by the Navy. He was just a captain of the ship as a civilian.
Okay.
So he was the captain of the Planter. That was his ship.
Sure, but he's still not a Navy officer.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. He had no contract with the military. He only learned this later when he tried to collect a Navy pension. I know. I actually found a newspaper article that talks about Robert seeking his pension and how the naval officers at the time didn't want a black man to hold the same rank as them. I'll put a picture up of it right now. Eventually, in 1897, a special act of Congress granted Robert a pension of $30 a month, equal to the pension of a Navy captain, but not the rank.
In 18 what?
97.
97?
Mm-hmm.
He served in the 60s.
I know. Poetically, when the Civil War ended in April 1865, Small was aboard the Planter in a ceremony in the Charleston Harbor, ending where he started, which I think is really nice. And he had brought out other previously freed slaves to watch the ceremony with him. Everybody was on the ship who was watching the ceremony. Regardless of his official military status, Robert still had more money than he knew what to do with. Like, he retired and he had a lot of money. Because you got to think the prize money from the bounty money from turning the ship in, his weekly stipend and his salary and everything like that. He was doing okay for himself.
And then his eventual pension.
Correct. But one of the first things he did was he returned to Beaufort to buy the house of his old owner, Mr. McKee.
That's an interesting move.
This was a common thing at the time. The property that Mr. McKee owned had been seized by the Union when Beaufort was captured.
Right, okay.
And he bought it at auction. He, his wife, and all of his children, and his mother lived in that house in Beaufort. Later, the McKee family actually sued to regain the property. But the court case allowed Robert to retain his ownership. And the case became an important precedent in similar cases across the South during Reconstruction.
Dude, just chase them off the lawn with a broom.
Seriously.
Like, get out of here. No.
Now, he didn't seem to hold too hard of feelings about the incident because he later allowed McKee's elderly wife, Jane, to move into her former home prior to her death, which honestly kind of a boss move. Like,
everything about this is a power move,
yeah,
by the way.
a little bit.
We're going to return. Here's the thing. I don't like driving by my old apartments. I'm just like, ooh,
Right.
That's when I was dating that guy we don't talk about.
Yeah.
Like, it's dark for me. So you're going back, you're going to own the home in which you were owned. Like,
Right.
That's a power move. And then the McKees try to sue you and you win.
Right.
Power move.
And then he let his wife.
And then being graceful and letting this elderly lady live where she lived for most of her life. Power move. I
Yeah.
mean, there's just power move after power move here.
He was a local celebrity in Beaufort as well. They would host all kinds of like social gatherings and weddings. It's like anything.
I'm telling you, if somebody doesn't carve this man into ice, I'm going to be pissed.
One article I read said that, quote, a widely circulated story at the time tells of two black South Carolinians arguing about Small's greatness. One declared Small's great, but allowed that Jesus Christ was greater. True, the other conceded, but Smalls is young yet, meaning that he might have some catching up to do. Robert stayed busy during the Reconstruction era by investing in the Charleston-Beaufort area. He formed an 18-mile horse-drawn railway line that ran all the way across Charleston from the port. Since he had been enslaved, he had never been taught to read or write. So, he spent 9 months learning to. He then purchased a 2-story building in Beaufort to use as a school for African-American children.
Wow.
Yeah. Outside of his business ventures, Robert also tried his hand at running for office.
How'd that go?
In 1868, he served as a delegate to the South Carolina State Convention that wrote a new state constitution. He lobbied for public education to be a key component of the new document.
Yes.
Public education was an incredibly important issue to him.
Yes.
Yeah. He was then elected to the House of Representatives, where he served 5 non-consecutive terms from 1874 to 1886.
Dude.
He tried hard to make the most of the Reconstruction era, but the government slowly gave up, and the South, as we know, began instituting policies that led to the downturn of any progress that had been made.
Yes, Reconstruction was a major failure. Andrew Johnson is one of the worst presidents we've ever had in the history of the United States.
Yes.
For any of our international community, that's the guy who took office immediately after Lincoln's assassination.
Yes.
And he largely believed that the Civil War and the Southerners, the Confederacy, ought to just be forgiven and let's move on.
Right.
And the result of that was all of those freedmen and women who were running for office and like cleaning up their community and building a whole new world, like they just got pushed out instantly. And then you had the rise of groups like the KKK. Yes. So good on you, Johnson.
Right.
Love it.
The Ku Klux Klan largely came out of the Reconstruction, the failure of the Reconstruction era.
The complete and utter failure of the Reconstruction. I think a major oversight in Lincoln's presidency was to largely forgive the Confederates and Confederate leadership and just say we need to start healing. We lost a lot of people during the Civil War. I can, to the extent that I can, understand the need to heal as opposed to push for retribution. There should have been retribution.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, war weariness is a very real thing.
Oh, and a Civil War especially, we lost a lot of people. It was bloody. The United States was in debt and had a lot of healing to do. But I think we entered that era prematurely, and it actually didn't allow for healing. It didn't allow for rebuilding.
No, and you got to wonder, like, the assassination of Lincoln led to Johnson being the president, right, at the time.
Right, he wanted to be very mild.
Yes.
So
because again, once your president is assassinated by extremists from the other side, you're trying to just keep
it together.
So if Lincoln never got assassinated, who knows how Reconstruction might have gone, right? For the failures of Reconstruction, Beaufort actually became a symbol for how things could have been for the South. And it's largely due to Robert and the people that he had surrounded himself with. Beaufort's a beautiful little community, by the way. I've driven through it a couple of times. It's got a very cute, like, downtown thing. It's right on the coast. It's lovely. Even though his political career had ended, he was at one point offered to be made a colonel of an African-American U.S. military regiment during the Spanish-American War, which he turned down. And he was offered a position of minister to Liberia, which he also turned down.
Yeah, I don't blame him. At this point, I don't want to serve the country that just keeps spitting in my face.
No, exactly.
I wouldn't want to do it either.
Robert Smalls died of malaria and diabetes.
What?
On February 23rd in 1915.
Diabetes?
Yes, he contracted diabetes
Did he
later
have type 2 diabetes? Was it type
I believe he had type 2 diabetes.
Oh
yes.
my God. And malaria.
And malaria at the age of 75. He lived a long time.
Damn.
Yeah.
For how hard that life was,
Exactly.
75 may as well be a million.
The churchyard monument to Robert is inscribed with his 1895 statement to the South Carolina legislature that reads, quote, "My race needs no special defense. For the past history of them in this country proves them to be equal of any people anywhere. All they need is an equal chance in the battle of life." End quote. In the 2000s, community members in Beaufort began to lobby for the creation of a national park site to tell the story of Robert and the importance of Reconstruction.
Yes.
In 2017, President Obama issued an executive order establishing a Reconstruction-era national monument in Beaufort County, noting the significance of Robert Smalls to our national history. The visitor center is located just a few blocks away from both Robert Smalls' home and his final resting place at Tabernacle Baptist Church in Beaufort.
It took a long time, but there's something very beautiful about the first black president being the one to finally act on it.
I agree. And that is the story of Robert Smalls.
Now, real quick question.
Yeah.
Not to get stuck on something,
Please,
but I
please.
do like to get stuck on something. This Navy pension, it didn't start getting paid to him until 1897.
Correct.
When did he die?
1915.
Okay. Did he receive back pay?
I don't believe
Like
he
for all
received
those-
back pay.
Okay, so let's maybe get him some back pay.
Yeah. He did receive a little bit of a stipend, kind of a back pay for the ship. So they recalculated the cost of the ship that he had stolen and then gave him, I believe, $4,000 extra equivalent at the time. So they only paid him $1,500 for the planter. And around the time when they gave him pension, they gave him additional money for the rescue of the planter.
That's great. I think we just want all the back pay
I know.
for the money that you have owed him since 1865.
I know that's a big problem that a lot of these things, a lot of this era of history kind of has to deal with. One story I actually want to tell at some point on the podcast, but my dad was a lawyer and helped put a case together for this black baseball player who was still alive at the time. And he had played in the Black American League and in the Major League.
Wow, okay.
And I want to say he played like 900 games in both or something,
Jesus
right?
Lord, okay.
But you needed 1,000 games to get pension from the MLB.
Mhm.
And the MLB said, well, he didn't play 1,000 games with us, so we can't give him a
You
pension.
wouldn't let him.
I know. So
Like, drives me crazy.
this one has a good hit. This one has a good ending though.
Back pay. Did they give him back pay?
They did.
Did it collect interest? Because you know when you owe the government money and then you don't pay it and then they charge you interest?
Right.
I want interest. I want back pay and interest on the back pay. For every day you don't pay me,
Right.
you owe me more money.
So the case went, and my dad and the law firm that he worked for were able to argue it, and they won in court. So he was able to get his pension. He was able to get back pay, everything.
This is really one of the big reasons I want a gun is so that when you say something I like, I can shoot it into the ceiling. Okay, well, that one worked out.
It did. It did. I know. I want to interview my dad about that and get the whole story, but it ended up being a good end to that story.
Pisses me off.
I know.
Pisses me off so much.
And it's so frustrating because it's like, even after the Reconstruction, even after the war, like this newspaper article that I read about these Navy officers are arguing against Robert Smalls to get pension because they don't want him to be on the same level as they are.
I guess you should have been a better naval officer.
Exactly.
Did you consider doing a better job? Did you consider being good at your job?
Right.
He's really good at your job, despite the circumstances.
He can't even.
Someone stole the ship.
He can't even read or write.
Yeah. But he taught himself. He taught himself how to read and write. He stole a ship, saved the war.
Right.
And you don't want to give him a pension?
I think the important thing to take away from the story is like how big of an impact he had, not only on the war itself, but on the community that he kind of fostered in Beaufort. And Beaufort is still a wonderful little place to go in South Carolina.
I want to talk to Hannah Jones, his wife.
Yeah.
I want to see what she has to say about all this. What does she think about the pension? Was she also
Seriously.
pissed off?
Oh, she had to be.
Like, you did all that work. You saved the war for them. They won't give you a pension. Let me go down there.
Yeah.
Give me the horse.
Seriously.
I'm going to ride down
Well,
there.
not only that, like he was a major player in like Beaufort and in Charleston. He owned multiple businesses. He had started a school. He was a part of the House of Representatives. Like he was an elected member of the House of Representatives. He was, you know what I mean?
It actually doesn't get more American than that.
No.
Can't say I'm seeing the Navy's vision here.
No.
But I'm not really ever seeing the government's vision.
No, exactly. Robert Smalls Day is May 13th, which is his birthday and the day after my birthday.
Hey,
I know. We're really close. We're both Tauruses.
that makes sense. That man was stubborn.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So that is my rabbit hole for today. Robert
Wow.
Smalls.
I'm glad it had a happy-ish ending.
Yeah. So am I.
That's
So
good.
am I.
Thank you for taking me on a rabbit hole.
Of course.
I
babe.
love when you take me down rabbit holes.
I am excited when I get to share a little
I never
bit.
know where you're going. I had no clue where you were taking me
I
today.
promise the next time it won't be like a historical figure. I'll make it something a little more like exciting, like the Dr. Phil episode.
You seem to like doing profiles.
I
on
like doing
people.
profiles.
I think you would have been a good, like, you know what you'd be good at? Like working for like Time Magazine, where you
really?
like follow the Stones around and you're like, I'm going to write a profile on Mick Jagger.
That's a very
Like
sweet
a
thing.
very honest portrayal of Mick Jagger. You know, you're one of those journalists who's like, can you go out and talk to Carson McCullers and just see what she's all about? And you like spend 2 months with her out at her ranch house.
That's a very sweet compliment, baby.
I think you'd really enjoy
Thank you.
that. I think you'd be good at it too.
I think you'd be good at like covering big political or war happenings. I think that'd be a big thing that you could do as a journalist.
You know what I think I'd be really good at is taking law and making it really simple.
Yeah.
There's no reason for it to be this complicated.
I think you would also be good at that.
Did he serve in the Navy? Not technically. Okay, but he was a captain of a ship during the Civil War.
Was he vital to the victories?
What are we talking about? Why are you making this complicated?
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Connor.
And I told you this would be interesting.
And I hope it was.
It very much was.
Good.
Want to give a special shout out to our coffee members whose names are scrolling on the screen as we speak. Thank you so much for supporting the show. We appreciate it so much. Every time we talk about coffee, it makes both of us a little emotional.
I know. It makes me emotional going on to coffee and like messaging people who kind of support us.
It's a really sweet way to connect, and we love talking to you guys. And if you're interested, you can check out our coffee page. It's a really easy way to support the show. Sometimes we post mini episodes over there. So if you're interested in that, you can check those out.
Yeah.
And what else?
I think that's everything. She's Lindsay, I'm Connor, and we'll see you next week.
And I'll see you in 2 seconds.
Bye, everybody.